Daniel Cross wasn't supposed to be here. Not on this barren rock, not living out of a cabin built from scrap and stubbornness, and certainly not racing toward danger again. He had promised himself years ago that war had taken enough. But old instincts never really die. His boots pounded the cracked earth, the dog's barks echoing through the canyon, pulling him toward the sound of desperation. The child's cry hadn't been human. Its tone was strange, almost musical, but fear was universal. Daniel knew that sound. He had heard it on battlefields across half the galaxy. When he reached the pit, the scene was surreal. The ground shimmered like liquid glass, sucking down the small figure inch by inch. Silver hair plastered against blue skin, her hands flailed helplessly, gripping at nothing. Daniel's pulse spiked. Memories flashed, comrades screaming, swallowed by fire, by chaos. Not again. Hold on. His voice was sharp, commanding, the tone of a man who had led soldiers through hell. He tossed his pack aside, looping a line around a jagged rock, and edged forward. The surface shifted under his weight, groaning as if the earth itself wanted him to. Ajax growled at the edge, pacing, hackles high. The girl's eyes locked onto his, bright, terrified, impossibly green. "Please," she whispered, her accent strange but clear. Daniel crouched low, extending a scarred hand. "Take my wrist. Don't let go." Her fingers were small, trembling, but when they closed around him, something shifted inside Daniel. A spark. Purpose. He pulled, every muscle straining, the ground sucking at their legs like some hungry beast. For one heartbeat he thought they'd both vanish beneath the glass. Then, with a roar that startled even himself, he heaved them onto solid stone. The child collapsed, coughing, then clinging to her luminescent skin. Daniel dropped beside her, chest heaving, his dog nosing frantically at her side. "You're safe now," he managed, voice rough. "What in hell were you doing out here alone?" She hesitated, then whispered, "My name is Kaylin. I wanted to see the crystal flowers." Daniel stared at her, blue skin, silver braids, alien, not human at all. And just like that, he knew his quiet exile was over. For 3 days after the rescue, Daniel tried to convince himself nothing had changed. He went about his routines, repairing solar panels, oiling his rifle, brewing the bitter coffee that was his one luxury. Yet every time he closed his eyes, he saw the child's terrified face staring back at him from the glass pit. He told himself it was over. Just one good deed. Back to solitude. But Ajax didn't believe it. The dog paced restlessly, nose twitching at every shift of the wind. On the third morning, while Daniel sat sharpening his combat knife, Ajax stiffened, ears pricked toward the horizon. Then came the sound, low, steady, like the beating of 100 drums. Dust rose in the distance. A line of figures emerged, shimmering in the harsh sunlight. Not just a few travelers. Dozens. An army. Daniel stood, jaw tight, as a procession approached. They moved in formation, tall and elegant, their armor shaped like flowing metal sculpted by fire. The sun caught on polished spears that hummed with faint energy. At the center walked a woman who needed no introduction. Regal. Commanding. Her silver hair braided with beads that sang softly as she moved. Kaylin trotted at her side, safe and smiling. Ajax wagged his tail furiously, utterly unimpressed by the spectacle of 40 alien warriors. Daniel, on the other hand, instinctively checked the weight of the blaster at his hip. The column stopped before his cabin. Silence pressed heavy in the air until the woman stepped forward. Her voice carried like a song carved from steel. "I am Serenia, chief of the Starlight clan. You are the human who pulled my daughter from the death sands." It wasn't a question. Daniel inclined his head, choosing his words carefully. "She was in trouble. I did what anyone would do." A murmur rippled through the warriors, soft, incredulous laughter, almost mocking. Serenia's eyes narrowed, though not unkindly. No, not anyone would risk their life for a child not their own. She gestured, and Kaylin stepped forward, holding a small carved box. Inside lay a bracelet of woven silver strands glowing faintly with blue light. "A life debt must be honored. From this day, you are marked as friend to the Starlight clan." Daniel slipped it onto his wrist. It warmed instantly against the skin. Ajax sniffed it, sneezed, then barked approvingly. Daniel exhaled slowly, watching the clan's leader. Solitude, it seemed, had officially ended. That evening, when the sun bled into the horizon and 3 moons began to climb, the clan returned for him. 2 warriors waited at his door, their postures straight, their expressions unreadable. Without a word, they guided him through winding canyons Daniel had never dared explore. Ajax patted at his heel, tail wagging as though this were all an adventure. When they emerged into a hidden valley, Daniel nearly forgot to breathe. The Navari city shimmered like something alive, dwellings carved into rock and vein with glowing plants, bridges of stone laced with streams that sparkled like liquid starlight. At the center burned a bonfire of violet flames, heatless yet radiant, painting the gathering crowd in hues of purple and silver. Hundreds of eyes turned toward him. Curiosity, distrust, awe. He was the only human in sight, and every step seemed to echo louder than it should. Ajax, of course, soaked in the attention, strutting like he owned the place. Serenia awaited him by the fire, no longer clad in armor but in flowing silver robes traced with symbols that glowed softly. She looked less like a war leader and more like something out of legend. "You honor us with your presence, Daniel Cross," she said, voice carrying easily over the hum of the gathering. He gave a dry smile. "Trust me, I didn't exactly have much of a choice. Your warriors at my door weren't big on no." A ripple of laughter passed through the crowd. Even Serenia's lips curved slightly. The feast began. Strange fruits that popped like firecrackers on his tongue, meat roasted with spices that left his lips tingling, and a drink that burned all the way down before leaving him warm and strangely light. Daniel found himself loosening, even laughing when Ajax stole a piece of roasted meat straight from a warrior's plate. Then came the dancing. Circles formed, drums pounded, and Navari warriors moved with a grace that was both ritual and power. Serenia extended a hand to him. "Dance with me." Daniel almost refused, but her gaze held weight. He took her hand. The steps were foreign, but his body remembered old rhythms, combat drills, partner movements. And soon, to his own surprise, he was moving in sync with her. As the dance drew them close, her voice slipped low, for him alone. "Raiders have entered our borders. My people are not ready for them. But you have faced such enemies before." Daniel's chest tightened. He had sworn never again. Yet looking into her steady, emerald eyes, he knew the promise he'd made to himself was already cracking. The warning came at dawn. A low hum rolled through the sky, not thunder, but engines, alien engines. Daniel stepped out of the tent where he'd spent a restless night among the Navari and saw dark shapes cutting across the clouds. Raider ships, sleek, black, like daggers thrown at the earth. Around him, the settlement shifted from calm ritual to disciplined urgency. Warriors strapped on armor, their spears snapping into energy-laced weapons with sharp clicks. Orders rang out in a language Daniel was only beginning to grasp. Serenia approached, her calm presence like an anchor in the storm. "They come for the heart crystals," she said. "If they take them, they will strip this world until nothing is left." Daniel's gut twisted. He had seen it before, worlds hollowed out, cultures erased, children made into refugees. That was the Federation's war all over again. He thought he had left it behind. Ajax barked sharply, snapping him back. The dog's ears pricked toward the north ridge. Smoke already climbed into the sky. Scouts had fallen. Daniel swore under his breath. He could walk away, let them handle it. This wasn't his fight. But Kaylin's small face flickered in his mind, her hand clinging to his as he pulled her from the death sands. And Serenia, proud but unyielding, asking him without shame to stand beside her. He found himself moving before he had decided. "You've got numbers," he told her, "but you don't have strategy for enemies like this. They'll cut you apart in the open." Her eyes narrowed. "And you do." "I've spent 20 years fighting people exactly like this." He pointed at the map carved into the stone table before them. "We funnel them here, into the canyon. Narrow choke points. Your warriors can ambush them. And when they break, you hit them from behind. Hit them fast, hit them hard." The warriors around the table exchanged wary looks. Serenia studied him, then gave a single nod. "Then you will lead." Daniel almost laughed. He had run from command, buried it. Now it was back, waiting like an old weapon he'd sworn never to touch. Before he could argue, a new cry split the camp. Kaelin was missing. Daniel froze. The raiders hadn't just come for crystals. They had taken the chief's daughter. And once again, the war was personal. The search began before the sun fully cleared the horizon. Daniel led a small team, 2 of Serenia's best trackers and Ajax at his side, through jagged canyons carved by centuries of wind. Kaelin's trail was faint, but the girl had left signs. A scrap of cloth caught on a thorn, a small footprint pressed into the dust. "She's clever," one of the trackers murmured. "Too clever for her age." "Or too stubborn," Daniel muttered, though he couldn't help the flicker of pride. She reminded him of every young recruit who thought themselves invincible, running headlong into danger. Except Kaelin was only a child. By mid-morning, Ajax stiffened, nose to the ground. A low growl rumbled in his throat. Daniel signaled the others down, scanning the ridge ahead. There, black figures, moving with mechanical precision. Raiders, a patrol of 6, sweeping the canyon. Daniel's pulse kicked into combat rhythm. He crouched behind the rocks, whispering, "They've got her, or they're close." The Navari trackers drew their energy spears, but Daniel shook his head. "No direct fight. We'd never win head-on. Let them pass." When the patrol moved out of sight, Ajax suddenly pawed at a narrow fissure in the canyon wall. The dog whined, tail stiff. Daniel crouched, peering in. A narrow opening led into darkness, glowing faintly with reflected light. "She's in there," Daniel said, voice tight. He unclipped a small Recon drone from his belt, old Federation tech he rarely used, and sent it buzzing through the crack. The wrist display flickered, revealing a cavern so vast it looked alive. Massive crystals jutted upward, each pulsing with inner fire. And tucked behind them, curled into a trembling bowl, was Kaelin. Daniel's throat loosened in relief. "We found her." But the joy lasted seconds. At the far side of the cavern, machines groaned, massive drills chewing into crystal walls, guarded by a full squad of raiders. The vibration shook the cavern, sending shards raining down. If they kept mining, the entire structure would collapse. Daniel's decision was instant. "We go in, quiet and fast. Get her out before this place comes down on all of us." He stripped off his chest plate, squeezing into the fissure with Ajax ahead of him. The walls scraped his shoulders, grit filling his mouth. Then he dropped into the cavern, heart hammering. Kaelin's eyes met his from the shadows, wide with relief. "Stay quiet, kid," Daniel whispered. "We're getting you home." Behind him, the crystals groaned again, as if the earth itself was warning. Time was running out.